Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Well, federal candidates are, I guess we can say, 3/4 of the way now through their campaigns. They've been working very hard towards winning your vote on the upcoming federal election, which is being held on October 19th. Now, for the riding of St. John South Mount Pearl, your candidates are Conservative Merrick Kroll, for the Green Party, Jackson McLean, Liberal Seamus O'Regan, and for the NDP, and my first guest of the night, incumbent Ryan Cleary. Welcome to Out of the Fog.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so I guess we can just start in terms of talking about this campaign. It's a very long one from what we've been used to in previous elections, 10 weeks. How are you finding it so far?
It's a marathon. Actually, it's an ultra marathon, and I'll tell you why. Because when we finish this on October the 19th, 10 weeks campaigning, then we're going to roll right into the provincial election coming up on November the 30th. But it's been hard. I've got two sons. They're older. One's 19, one's 16, and I haven't seen them a lot. Now, they understand, because I've been away a fair bit as a journalist and as a member of Parliament. But it's hard. It's hard, too, in terms of not having time sometimes to absorb a lot of things that you hear and see at the door. Normally, there's time to absorb things, but with an election where you're flat out, there's not. But it's good. I've run a marathon before, so I know what it's like to take my time and breathe.
Okay, when you mentioned knocking door to door, I know you've been doing a lot of that lately. Is there anything that really comes to mind in terms of one main issue that has really, I guess, piqued your interest?
The number one issue at the doors, but not just at the doors, the number one issue in terms of casework at my constituency office for a while now, a couple of years, is seniors. More specifically, it's seniors having a harder and harder time to get by. Seniors are on a fixed income, but their rents are going up, the groceries are going up, they're having to make decisions between medications and groceries and heat and light. Seniors are having a hard time. Now, they don't talk about it a lot in public. It's hard to get a senior on a TV camera, for example, saying that I'm having a hard time because they have dignity, because this is not something that they want to go public with. But I hear these stories at the door. The number one story at the door is seniors and a hard time.
Okay. While you've been campaigning and watching your leader campaign, do you think that with this election and when people go to vote on October 19th, do you think that they're going to vote for somebody who's going to represent them in Newfoundland and Labrador, or are they voting ultimately for the person who's going to lead the country?
That's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. From my perspective, I represent Newfoundland and Labrador in Ottawa. I don't represent Ottawa in Newfoundland and Labrador. I have spent my 4 years in office working for the people of St. John South Mount Pearl, working for Newfoundland and Labrador, standing on my feet at every opportunity. I think that I'm known pretty well as a fighting Newfoundlander. You have to be. I come from a small province, and the interests, unfortunately, of larger provinces can sometimes take precedence over Newfoundland and Labrador, but I'm there to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, I want to backtrack a little bit, because when the NDP here provincially were looking for a leader, you said that you were thinking about throwing your hat in that ring. Why exactly was it that you made the decision not to do it here provincially and stick with running federally?
Because I'm not done yet. My work in Ottawa is not done. In terms of big picture issues, be it last in, first out, and a policy that negatively impacts Newfoundland and Labrador, rural Newfoundland and Labrador, and the fight that needs to be waged there, and other issues. I am not done yet. I considered it. I think that any leader worth their salt would consider becoming the leader. The thing is, I'll never be Prime Minister of Canada. That's because I don't speak French. But Premier, I think I was asked that before, that very question on this show, I believe. But no, I don't think any leader worth their salt would write that off.
Okay. One of the things that the NDP wants to do, and I just honing in on Newfoundland and Labrador, is we're talking about abolishing the Senate. When you think of the issues that pertain specific to Newfoundland and Labrador, and you think of this, what is it, 6 or 7 seats, 6 senators, do you think that could have a negative effect here in Newfoundland and Labrador if there is no Senate?
That's a good question too. Back in 2011, when I first ran, I said publicly, in terms of the abolishing the Senate, I said, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because there are voices for Newfoundland and Labrador. But a lot has changed over the 4 years that I've been in Ottawa. My feelings about the Senate have changed. The Senate is not salvageable. If it was a perfect world and the Senate worked the way it's supposed to, we'd have regional representation, we'd have representation from Newfoundland and Labrador, from the Atlantic provinces in the Senate.
But if it was to, if you were to reform
what we have right now are senators who represent the interests, not of the region, but of the party, of the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. Of course, there are no NDP senators, and there won't be. I don't think that you can reform the Senate. The senators do not work for the provinces. The senators work for the parties who put them there.
Okay. You recently took part in a radio debate, which was held by CBC, and I want to ask you this because you did say at the start you weren't going to get personal. It did turn a little personal. You did make a comment. I'm just wondering, do you regret that at this time when you look back? Do you think that could have a negative effect?
I don't think that was personal at all. I think that in the context of which the remark was brought up, I think I mentioned the fact that my Liberal opponent hasn't lived here for 20 years. I think that in the context in which I said it, it is a weakness. I have lived here, I have worked here, I've raised my family here my entire life with the Telegram, with the Independent newspaper, on radio. I know this province inside out. And in the context in which I made that remark, I think that my opponent was the fact that he didn't live here was showing. He didn't know he doesn't know the issues of the day. He doesn't know. He hasn't lived and breathed Newfoundland and Labrador, and it shows sometimes in the remarks that he makes.
But so you don't think that
that's
was
not
personal
a personal
at all?
remark. No, absolutely not. That's just a fact. Have you lived here? No, that's just a fact. That's not personal.
Okay. We just have a couple of minutes left, but I want to ask you, why do you think people should vote for Ryan Cleary for St. John's South Mount Pearl?
Why should people vote for me? Because I care, because I stand up for Newfoundland and Labrador, because I'm a fighter, because I know the issues that the provinces face. I know the history. I know where we should head in terms of the future, because I've done my work. In terms of, there's work that members of Parliament do that people never see. It's called casework. And I tell you what, we've helped thousands of people through my office over the last 4 years that I've been in office. And like I said earlier, I'm not done yet. There's more work to do, and I know Ottawa now, so.
All right, we have about 30 seconds. I just want to know, if you were to be re-elected, what would be your main priority going forward?
Well, one of our first priorities when we get back is the policy of LIFO, last in, first out. We need, in Northern Shrimp, we have 3,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador who are going to be impacted by this policy. The policy does not work for Newfoundland and Labrador. We need policies, we need fundamental principles like adjacency, those closest to the resource benefit the most from the resource, and historical dependence. We need that to come into play for these for fisheries management decisions that impact Newfoundland and Labrador.
Okay, well, Mr. Cleary, we're going to leave it there. I want to thank you very much for joining me this evening. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay. We are going to take a very short break, but stay with us. Lots more to come here tonight on Out of the Fog.